Joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Any of those places, both of those names, well, for the most part anyway, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, you will find us and, continuing our mission in the variety of different ways that we do, of trying to have live local talk radio back in the borderline, but also that discussion that comes with, well, all of those issues, because there's so much to go into every week. We run out of time, I feel like, just about every show, and there's more that we will keep getting into today, of course, here. So comments over on the social media is one of the better ways to interact throughout the show. If you're, willing to enter the Thunderdome of comments anyway, that always ends up forming over there, particularly the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, where the Skeptic Squad lives for the most part, or lurks, or however you want to put it. But we get into the serious issues because we definitely need to. A couple of the top of mind things for me today, anyway, are a surprising stat. I mean, we'll take it with a grain of salt here, but to get into it, of how much housing competition there is here in El Paso, plus the whole shortage going on in a variety of ways, but back specifically on the, employee side of things, how more are looking to, get out of that situation entirely and even become their own boss. And of course, the impacts that has all the way down the line, plus some significant arrests happening in El Paso, the solicitation that we'll just talk about briefly here, because it's very important to stay aware when online these days. But also that thing that we mentioned breaking last week, search for a new chamber CEO for the Chamber of Commerce here in El Paso. So those are some of the things we got on deck for you today. Again, comments throughout the show, a few people tuning in and chiming in over on the social media, Facebook, among others here. Maybe getting our reach creamed here a little bit, but hey, that's what happens when you're on a platform you don't control, and that's why we're in all of those places here. So the surprising stat that jumped out to me as we were talking today, technically from a report a little bit earlier in this week, but as from the housing firm Redfin. They do kind of national listings here, and then further reported on by Yahoo News is the specific link I found. They do some, some different analysis. They're kind of one of those listicle sites that have their own purpose behind them. Yes, I said listicle. That's the way I prefer to say it here. Come at me. Because they have their own core business of, listings, housing, that kind of a thing. But they came up with a surprising one of their most competitive cities to buy a house. And in other times, there have been, waxing and waning things. Number 5 in the list, San Francisco and San Jose. Number 4, Raleigh, North Carolina. Number 3, Minneapolis. Number 2, Denver. But for February, again, according to this firm, Redfin, El Paso ranked number 1 for the most competitive offers, being the most offers facing a competition, bidding wars, all of that here. El Paso, Texas ranks number 1 at 87.5%. Yeah, that's right. We are beating other places, just going down the list, Boston, Spokane, Washington, Seattle, Sacramento. I mean, so places that have notoriously difficult housing markets. El Paso, again, according to this firm, so this isn't a total macro view of the entire situation, but representative from this one national firm and the way they deal with it, 87.5% of offers facing competition in February. And I mean, some of the things that are quoted in some of these other articles about it, that there is just a severe shortage of new builds here, meaning that everyone is looking to buy, the houses that are on the market is already built, as opposed to contracting with a new buyer. Know some people who are still trying to do the contracting with a new buyer, but it's even then a little bit of its own kerfuffle at the moment, dealing with just all those logistics problems. You need to remember, someone said previously, I want to say it was within the last year, that they were waiting to build something, they were getting all their logistics together, and they ended up buying a storage container and just kind of socking away all of their stuff into it as they were building up materials. I almost wonder if they're going to be considering not building that anymore, or if they're just going to, cash in on that as a potential investment. Like that's your retirement shipping container at this point, guys. I mean, you've got the materials in there to potentially buy a house. You could end up in a bidding war over that, because that has become just so dang valuable. So if anyone out there, I can't remember who said that, one of our people that comment on here every so often. So if you're out there and you're listening, I would love to hear back from you what the status of your retirement shipping container is and what you're considering doing with it. Because yeah, I mean, I've just seen someone did a glow up of lumber prices still going up around here. I know we've talked a lot about things like, gas prices. It's middling around. Still some shenanigans going on with that from the volatility and the emotions of the market kind of thing, but separate issue. But yeah, they're going up. You mean almost more than doubling in some cases. Like seriously, you'd be hard pressed to find a better investment than if you would manage to buy I'm going to buy some either futures or just literal like a pallet of plywood, like big plywood sheets. You'd be hard pressed to find a better investment that you could have had your return on the money from than that. Like you would have more in some cases than doubled your money, particularly if you're willing to like ship it out. Like, yeah, you bought it here and then ship it out to California. You might have enough to buy, well, not a house in California because there's not much you're doing out there if you're not winning the scratch off. But still, you probably could have done decently, had a nice meal in San Francisco and then gotten the hell out, maybe kind of thing here. John Rawlings knows some audio issues on the stream. See if that's a little bit better anyway. But John also saying food shortages, typo there technically, I believe you meant food shortages in the Middle East now due to cost. Wait until fall, food will be too expensive for most people in the United States. Again, we're in a slightly different situation there, but shortages do abound. I mean, among other things, Europe and all of it is looking at, and the Middle East and Africa primarily. The whole Ukrainian conflict is not, of course, isolated to itself, as we felt in a lot of different ways, but the shortages, the planting season is now in Ukraine, and unfortunately, a lot of tractors are being used to harvest, down tanks than they are actually for planting at the moment, so its own issue. We're probably going to be seeing more impacts from that, so I am doubtful that we will seeing people it being food too expensive because cheap stuff, will keep coming out. And we do produce our own here. That is key. We are not reliant on imports, particularly when it comes to wheat and those kind of things. But that supply may be getting more expensive. So I'm not saying it's going to be fun, and we'll probably see, as was brought up at the end of last week, probably a lot more strain on some of our local resources, including the food banks and others. So, due diligence and paying attention to these things is going to be important. But, we'll have to wait and see there. The last thing I want to say before we get to this next segment here is from our news partners over at KFOX 14, two arrested for soliciting minors online in El Paso. We don't exactly do the crime beat that much, but being online as we are, I feel it prudent to mention it that Marlene Gallegos, 25, of Socorro, and Brian Johnson, 29, were booked in the El Paso County Jail, according to police, again, from our news partners at KFOX 14, that they spoke with an undercover officer posing as a girl that was under the age of 18, they said in the news release, and then went to go meet her, and then got, why don't you just have a seat over there? And glad they did. But this is the importance of knowing what's going on online. I know screen time is its own debate here in modern parenting, but also knowing what's going on in screening online. There's been some disturbing stories that have come about otherwise kid-framed YouTube videos previously. Like the intention just be like, okay, the kid just wants to watch Baby Shark for the 8 millionth time. Just let them. But even then, it's important to be involved in it. It's something we've talked about in its own way before, but not just handing off any responsibility, really, but staying involved in it when it comes to your kid or your family or your community, just to kind of bring that home, is absolutely important. And this just highlights it in this one very specific way. The disturbing implications that come from this are absolutely important. So know what your kids are doing online. I know that may sound a little preaching to the choir out there, as I'm sure most people are very concerned about that here, but it bears repeating. And I'm glad that these alleged, got to say that technically dirtbags, were caught in this and have been booked. But that's, I got to say, probably not the majority of them in the area at any given point. And of course, it happens outside the area as well. So that's just something to keep in mind for your sojourns or your family's sojourns online here. So overdue for that first break of the hour here right now. Coming out of the break, we'll talk more about also that whole fed up with the rat race, becoming your own boss, or kind of just what has been being seen by some of the chamber commerces in town. We saw quite the toll on small businesses coming out of last year and the last 2 years, really. So those deciding to make the leap out of the employment race and, into their own shingle here Talk more about that and a whole lot more here on Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming back after this break, more Talk El Paso. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 Gateway northbound at Cassidy, watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. Loop 375 Trans Mountain at Paseo del Norte, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. On Montana Avenue, westbound at Geronimo, an injury accident with EMS crew on the scene. And an accident reported Edgemere Boulevard at Rich Beam. You could take Tierra Este or Pebble Hills as alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
What if I told you that a lawyer who was a tone-deaf, bad poet ended up writing our national anthem? Well, to hear this story, be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. I'm not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
The podcast, What's Your Problem, dives deep into new technology and the challenges facing people at the top of their field. On each episode, Jacob Goldstein, former co-host of NPR's Planet Money, speaks with the entrepreneurs and engineers creating innovations in medicine, artificial intelligence, and more.
We didn't have a particular technology. We didn't have a business model. We didn't have a way of making money. It was a great way to start a company. I highly recommend it.
Listen to What's Your Problem on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice, be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Whenever I'm thinking about where I might go my next travel, going around the world or something, even if that's not totally on the table right now, the way I usually think about it is, what kind of flavors am I going to go about? Okay, I'm into food, but even if you're not, there's a great local source for you to find those flavors for yourself, whatever your travel plans may be. Enhanced Flavors, your local source for over 40 quality flavored olive oils, extra virgin olive oils, and balsamic vinegars. Of course, the olive oils imported from around the world, Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain, with some great varieties that come along with them. Their garlic olive oil, you smell it right out of the bottle and can really help spice up your life and kick it up a notch when it comes to your food. But also, of course, the balsamic vinegars straight from the Modena province of Italy. That is absolutely the definition of how that works here. So you want to find them. They've been out in the community here. If you visit them over at the Upper Valley Arts and Farmers Market there near Donovan and Mesa in the Hobby Lobby parking lot. They're out there frequently, but also you can find them online at enhancedflavors.com. That is enhancedflavors.com to find all their varieties and how to get it directed right to your door.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We got some people chiming in online right now. John Browselton, RJ, Dan Morales dropping that like and more. So you're more than welcome to throughout the show. The comments get interesting, let's say, oftentimes over there. Some further concern about the online situation. Again, just know what your kids are doing online. I know that sounds like a tall order, and it may seem like, oh, yeah, sure, buddy, you come over and watch my kid online. But seriously, just don't abdicate your responsibility when it comes to that here. Some of the other things that we are talking about here, of course, coming up, and some tweets over the weekend from New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and social media postings there about what is coming for the, of course, marijuana legalization. Now, end of this week, folks. Buckle up. It'll be an interesting time. Of course, given that it was under her administration, the legislation passed. Her saying, a year ago, I enacted legislation legalizing recreational cannabis in New Mexico, an industry that will create 11,000 new jobs for New Mexicans and generate hundreds of millions of dollars in sales tax and revenue. Saying over, expecting specifically $31 million in revenue this first year alone when it comes to the, tax rolls, I think. It was actually pretty short. We've legalized cannabis, and with it, we're going to bring in $31 million in revenue this first year alone, quote unquote, from Michelle Lujan Grisham online. So I think they were referring to state revenues, income taxes on it, I guess I should say specifically. But we'll see what the expectations are. Some good, some bad that has come along there. But we'll see how it works on our border and the policies that come along with it. But speaking about jobs and the impact and people deciding how to go about employment and those kind of things, we've seen, an interesting shift to the way some people are doing that. Specifically, El Paso Inc., one of their top stories this week, more El Pasoans quit jobs to start businesses. And that may sound interesting anecdotally. I mean, we've definitely talked with our fair share of entrepreneurs. Again, Dan, hiding out there in the audience somewhere, has, of course, been a great example of people being creative to get through the pandemic. Him, of course, with Thrive 915, who has an event coming up this weekend, by the way, the April No Foolin' event. I think I'm saying that right here. The barbecue and all car show that'll be happening out at Economy Cash in Cary on April 2nd, again, with some competitions and such going on. I'll probably head out there a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit closer to that. But that's kind of the idea of the entrepreneurial spirit. And there was quite the toll being taken on businesses of all sides, but I feel like particularly small businesses in our area. We've talked more than a little bit about some of the impacts of like the SBA loans, the Paycheck Protection Program, all of that kind of stuff, and how particularly newer businesses, I feel like they kind of got the shaft with that, because a lot of those loans, or loan opportunities, I guess I should say, came with the stipulation of basically being able to prove year-over-year revenue loss. Now, there were a few that allow for new businesses, but just the bulk of them absolutely went to, at very least existing businesses. You had to essentially have been on the books on your local tax rolls in 2019 to qualify for a lot of it. Otherwise, it was going to be a pretty tough road for you to deal with navigating all of this. I mean, there was plenty of fraud in that too, and separate subject, but just in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, people wanting to, maintain their businesses, maintain their life and livelihoods, it was a rough and raw deal for a lot of people. But again, as El Paso Inc. is reporting that because of some of those impacts, and again, the layoffs that we saw, I was looking back at a graphic illustration of the chart of, unemployment happening in the U.S. and then that, March 2020 just skyrocketing, a near vertical line, and just all the implications that has of just the serious impacts done to the economy that came from that. And of course, the decisions that led to it, particularly from a lot of local areas, of which we're more than a little bit familiar in our area. But in any case, the impact on the small businesses, I mean, there were some estimates that by the thousands, small businesses ended up closing, according to how exactly we're looking at it. But the interesting thing, again, from that El Paso Inc. story, more El Pasoans quit jobs to start businesses, talking about some specific ones, some trainers in the area, but pointing out that in 2019 and 2020, 12% increase in new business applications, and even further on that with the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, that they showed that there was approximately a not quite 30% jump in the number of, particularly with their Hispanic business women's center, seeking to start their businesses, looking for information. So, along with the very anecdotal at this point, anyway, that we have seen so far with a lot more activity. Again, I have not particularly on the weekend. I have not passed by a parking lot of a business that is fully up and running anyway and operating at that point in time that has not just been jam-packed. But at the same time, I have also been to a couple of places where, well, the short staffing was more than a little bit evident. Again, I do not fault anyone in particular working there unless they are just really dropping the ball, because most places are seriously dealing with just not enough hands on deck, which is in part, I know that there's some conversation that talks about the money that's out there, but unless you really bulked up on the kids over the pandemic, a lot of those payments have more or less stopped beyond usual. Anyway, there's still some unemployment, but the extra money, those extra stimulus checks, again, except for kids, which has been part of the previous budget, not this current one that's being looked at, and we can get into that just a bit as well, because there's some particular interesting bits of that 2023 budget that has come out, particularly that minimum billionaires tax. Regardless, for the average person anyway, it has been difficult to even get people on board. We've had shared, even just personally in this, a little bit more a difficulty along those lines. But people going out and starting new businesses, I guess I can't particularly fault them, saying that, you know what, particularly service sector workers, they've had a raw deal for a long time as it is. Again, the fact that, tips can make up for it, but not everywhere is a place where you're getting tipped, dozens of dollars an hour. You're still looking at $2 and change an hour, supposed to be made up by tips, but that doesn't always happen. And even then getting it, it's still, $7 an hour for an objectively very difficult job. I don't know if you've ever, I hope you haven't been the person, but have you ever seen probably someone at a restaurant who was just given a server the business, or anyone involved in, fast food, the fast casual, I think is the correct phrase for it, or anything like that. It happens quite a lot here, and I have managed to avoid that in my personal life. Well, thank whoever is responsible for that, knock on wood that it never happens, as much as possible. But that's an exceedingly difficult job in just the dealing with it. I know we call it quote unquote unskilled labor, but again, be ready to hop on a burger line yourself and see how you feel about the, again, less than $7 an hour that you can sometimes get there. Point is that I do not blame anyone who has decided that, given the instability of it over the past couple of years, saying, you know what, screw this, I'm going to go do my own thing, and taking on that entrepreneurial spirit. The estimates vary that, half of all businesses in this country, or half of the employees of businesses, are of small businesses, depending on how you break it down. Statistics, different kind of subject here, and the issues that come along with doing analysis of it, but it's undeniable that it's a huge sector of our economy, and I think really our local economy. You feel like more than any place I've ever lived or worked before, El Paso is one of those places where you drive down the street, just try it next time. If you're driving right now, if you can do it safely, just try to look at the number of cars that have either, the magnet sticker on the side, the number in the back window, something on the hood, something along those lines that says that, hey, I'm running my own shingle out here. And sure, for this purpose, we'll include even the Avon people, even though I don't want to get in trouble for describing it the way I want to. But in any case, anyone out there doing the hustle, put it out their own shingle in some way or another, even if it's as a franchisee. I don't think we'd begrudge any McDonald's owner or any other, Subway or anything like that for, well, you just work for a bigger company. But no, you have your own vested interest in it. Point is that we have seen an increase of that, and that may be at least a little bit part of the problem we are seeing with, staffing. Though a line that has stuck with me from particularly last night when we were out, did hear from someone about welcome to the state of the service industry right now. So I also don't think that unless there is some essentially quality of life changes, or more succinctly, pay increases. Because I do know of more than a couple of places, local places for the most part in town, and not even just franchisees, but locally run, locally operated, local decision making. That's what's really key, that have had not as much staffing issues, because they have made the decision, have made it work for themselves, that they are going to compensate at a level that will then justify the labor that is going into it. And really, if you want to get down to the whole discussion of the free market system and how it's supposed to work, if people aren't willing to give their labor, sure, there are some external forces out there that could be looked at, that could be analyzed, that could be blamed even. But again, I've seen more than a couple who have managed, through their own decisions in looking at the market that they are dealing with, that are making it through fine. Well, find relatively in this case, put it in quotes here, because there's more than a few issues out there continually, including energy costs, yada, yada, all shortages writ large and all the issues that come with it. But still, I have the most faith in those that are, well, managing to keep and hire people. And a lot of that seems to come down to pay. But we'll have to get more into that here next segment here, because we're due for that next break. Coming out of the break, we'll get more into this, including the departure of a different Chamber of Commerce member that we kind of talked a little bit about last week, but what that might mean, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back after this break. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 Mornings News Update. El Paso police are looking for a man who made a fast getaway with an expensive piece of jewelry. It happened Wednesday afternoon at the Zell's Jewelry store inside Bassett Place. The suspect asked to try on a gold necklace valued at nearly $8,000, and when he had it on, he took off, made it past store employees and out the door. The suspect is Hispanic, stands 5'7", and is likely in his late 20s. Crime Stoppers of El Paso is offering a reward for information that leads to a conviction in this case. And always remember, you can stay up to date with the latest news, all by signing up for our CBS 4 newsletter. It's easy and free to sign up. Just go to cbs4local.com, enter your email address, and from there you will start receiving our daily news updates straight to your inbox. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 Mornings News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the 54 Gateway northbound at Cassidy, watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. Loop 375 Trans Mountain at Paseo del Norte, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. On Montana Avenue, westbound at Geronimo, an injury accident with EMS crew on the scene. And an accident reported Edgemere Boulevard at Rich Beam. You could take Tierra Este or Pebble Hills as alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. So we start off a new work week looking very much like the weekend, with temperatures running almost 10 degrees above average. But that changes on Tuesday as our next wind maker arrives. It arrives with moisture to bring back a chance for some rain, and also arrives with a cool front. So cooler temperatures will change this very warm weather pattern we've been under.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. And right now, save 45% off any order. Just use code RADIO at checkout. Blindster.com.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
What if I told you that a lawyer who was a tone-deaf bad poet ended up writing our national anthem? Well, to hear this story, be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood, or an earthquake is destroying buildings. When a tornado is tearing through town, or a hurricane strikes. Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, of course, and thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. We put it out in all those ways because, doing open discussion about some things can get a little bit spicy sometimes online, and, the implications that come from that from these different platform owners and operators can be significant. Some people sometimes get banned, and we can be deplatformed at any moment because we, do our own thing, and that sometimes ruffles feathers in all directions. Anyway, we're up there. You want to comment on there as RJ, John Brazelton, and more are tuning in, chiming in. Dan Morales dropping that like over there. And that's one of the better ways, too, because we got some interesting comments here. RJ saying you got to love that hustling spirit. I mean, absolutely, because, that's literally the lifeblood of an economy, because if we're all just passive about it here, I mean, even anyone just like, I just go to work, go home, and just rinse and repeat. That's a sad life. I'm sorry. I could not live that way, even though I sometimes live that way. I get to talk with you all. That's the benefit to me. Let's just say that. But like, seriously, it's people doing things, getting out there, making things happen that allow for the improvement, because sure, there might be some, well-appointed individuals that might make certain decisions that could benefit things. It's the average person, I think, that ends up being one of the better parts of it. Steve Ivey on the food idea of it, saying when fertilizer prices increase 35% over a year, which I'm going to be surprised if it doesn't go a little bit higher, I will be honest with you, and increased production costs plus the fuel price and inflation, everything is going to skyrocket to the detriment of all humanity. We're in a serious global food situation, whether people here in the U.S. realize it or not yet. Okay, I still am on the fence. I mean, we're a lot closer to it than I'd like to be comfortable with. I'll freely admit that, but I don't know if we're totally going to be like just nothing available on the store shelves. But I will also freely admit that I'm not also one to take that to chance. So if you're one of those with that bare pantry, bare cupboard, and eating out every day, not that I think there's a ton of people out there, but I know a couple. Just fix that. Deal with that. Get something in the pantry. Buy a can of beans, for goodness sake. Just figure out what your needs are. And then, you don't even have to go out and, please don't go buy it all at once. Don't make this toilet paper part 2 out there. But just, take a reasonable stock of your situation. If things were to get interrupted for just any period of time. I mean, imagine if there was, a bad earthquake, hurricane, something like that, that would cause not maybe short term, but maybe slightly longer disruptions here. I mean, we've had it at times when McDonald's was out of stuff because of a storm in East Texas disrupting the latest shipment out there. I've seen that sign. I think I took a picture of it. I'll have to drag it up somewhere. These things happen. And I think a lot of more people are getting a little bit more acquainted with the idea of, I might not have what I want immediately when I want it if I haven't pre-planned, which is always been the case. Just this whole just-in-time supplies things had been working pretty well right up until it didn't, which is how most things end up going belly up. But in any case, point is, take care of yourself. I have used that phrase in a variety of ways, because that no one else is going to take care of you like you're going to take care of you. None of these talking heads, not even myself, I will inform you about it. But, I got my family to be concerned about, and that's the one I'm planning with. Take care of yourself. And in this case, make sure your needs are going to be met. Contingency planning, another way to put it here, but not to go too far down the rabbit hole with that, because I'm still bullish on El Paso until proven otherwise. Among other things, that whole noise ordinance issue here, again, from our news partners over at KFOX 14 and anchor Robert Holguin, going a little bit more depth into how, does the article title, Business Owners, City Council at Odds regarding proposed noise ordinance changes. We've talked about it a little bit, how there's this whole amplification of sound issues as people who otherwise live near venues. If it's someone moved, the person that I feel bad for is someone who moved mid-pandemic, one of those people moved within earshot of a venue, maybe not have totally realized it. I mean, let's, account for the clueless. And then it starts back up again and they didn't realize they lived right next to a discotheque. and they're having issues. Like, I feel for that person, but also, like, look around the neighborhood before you buy a place. Like, just saying that there's a little bit more than a little bit of buyer's remorse out there that we'll get into here in just a second. But I mean, those people I feel for, but someone who's like lived near a place or within, thump range, I guess we can say, that kind of a thump range is what I mean. If they got in that range and they got used to the relative silence over the pandemic, now it's back on again and they're mad. What did you think was going to happen, my dude? Like that person, okay, I kind of feel for you, but I also kind of don't, because, again, look at the situation out there. People want to get out. They want to do things. And the economy, until proven otherwise, doing seemingly decent in the area. And I really would hate to see that stymied. But also, I mean, people deserve the right to peace, to live in peace. I don't know. Curious to know what you all think about that. We've talked a little bit about this, but I mean, again, the special report or a better report out there, Kevin Williams putting it succinctly, let me go build a house near the airport and start complaining about the noise. I have lived in places that have done the whole warfare over flight paths kind of thing. Like, no, it can't be over us. It's someone else's problem. And like it passed legislation or done with like local councils or that kind of thing. And then they get mad about it and it goes back and forth like, don't want to be anywhere near that. I mean, we kind of lucky-ish in a way that we've got that El Paso International Airport, essentially kind of a guaranteed flight path, not directly going over most houses on takeoff anyway, because I mean, the runways go straight out, well, to largely Fort Bliss area. So, okay, for the people posted there, I feel for you, but also you live on a military base. I don't know if you were expecting peace and quiet, you picked the wrong profession. I do apologize. I mean, I feel for you a lot of things, you do a lot of respect and all, but certain expectations come with the territory. I do feel like. Anyway, so at least we don't have as much of that in our region, but plenty of places do. But yeah, so when it comes to the revitalization of the economy that we are so desperate for, I feel like we are on an upswing. Again, some of the things seeing about, just anecdotally, what I'm seeing out of businesses, some of the information coming out of the chambers of commerce on those kind of things, because we have a few here in town focused on different subsets of the population, as is, probably right and correct. That needs to continue. We need to keep seeing this because we have, lost a lot of ground over these last couple of years, but there's still reason to be encouraged, I do feel. Among other things, what we were seeing with the maquila industry, the reshoring that we have talked about, or the nearshoring in other cases in other parts of this region, it's all going to have an impact right here. And so really anything stymieing that, I'm not going to totally come out against, but I'm going to take a dim view at the very least. And I kind of feel like that with this noise ordinance. I guess case by case, there's probably some reasonable places where some things have gone wild on them. Again, El Paso's fondness for patio bars and for pumping the sound out of that, or happened to go to one recently that was a converted house, basically gutted the inside of it and turned it into a bar. Nice place enough, but if I lived right next to that and you converted it into it, I mean, I want to say that's probably been either mid or since pandemic, I would be a little miffed. So again, case by case, I think is the best way to do it. But on the general order of business should probably be like, let businesses operate. Let them do what they need to, particularly the ones who had it before the pandemic. Again, if it's something that it's new, sure, there maybe need to be restrictions. I mean, businesses need to accommodate for the people around them. Be a good neighbor is a good way to think of it. And that goes both ways, both for people who live next to it. I mean, it's the same kind of thing of, I've seen farms who had to put up a sign that animals do animal things. They, have effluence, shall we say. They make noises. They procreate. And if you're not used to any of that, don't buy a house near a farm. Particularly now when we're talking about food shortages and such and other such shortages, kind of coming back to the whole reality idea, we got a lot of things that we need to keep going to be able to keep the whole kit and caboodle moving in this country. And if we're standing on ideology or standing on ceremony as opposed to, okay, is this actually necessary or what are the actual impacts, we're going to have a bad time. So what it takes to accomplish that is, frankly, you and me getting out and talking about it at the very least, because if we're just sitting on our own thinking like, that's bad, someone should do about it, and then nothing else, just flat out doesn't work that way. That is not how things get solved. But even if you're just talking with someone about it, being like, hey, have you noticed this? Or have you thought about this? Or what do you think we should do about X, Y, or Z, or any of these issues we come up with? That's at the very least the start of something that I would hope against hope sometimes, can turn into something more substantive as well. But we'll take it more of that after this break here. Again, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Maybe talk a little bit more about some of that remorse I've been seeing here and how to not be a victim of it. Also, a little bit of politics, because that's the thing we do. What O'Rourke was saying in town after this break here on News Radio 690.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the border highway, westbound after Midway, watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Gateway Boulevard, northbound at Cassidy, a stalled truck is blocking the left shoulder there. Police responding to an accident America's Avenue, westbound at Pan American Drive, and an accident Yarborough south of the 10 at Esther Road. You could take Lafayette or North Carolina Drive as alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by WhatsApp. No one should read your personal messages. That's why WhatsApp uses end-to-end encryption. It protects whatever you send before, during, and after you send it. So no one, not even WhatsApp, can read your messages. Always message privately. WhatsApp.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required. Refund available for 60 days after purchase.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/free. You'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. Results are guaranteed or your money back. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/free. That's 4hims.com/free for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/FREE.
What if I told you that a lawyer who was a tone-deaf bad poet ended up writing our national anthem? Well, to hear this story, be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, and I kind of probably should have mentioned it. End of last segment here that one of the ways is by calling in during the show, because this is about that point in the show when we open up those phone lines. If only to set up next hour here, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Kevin Williams driving that react over there. And the story about everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. Yeah, it's a good one there. A little bit longer to post up on the Facebook there, but you can go and see it for yourself. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso is the main place where these comments permeate here. And RJ saying, yeah, we need to fight for our right to prosper. Good way to put it. Keep our businesses open and not let local and national government lock us down and impose mask and vax mandates. That'll kill 70% of the small to medium businesses. Yeah, that's part of the reason we focus on it. Like, sure, there is some justification that was given about why these things happen. But if you're ignoring the impacts that come with it, saying, well, we had to do it and that's all there is to it, like, even if I believe your reasoning, to then not look at the impacts and work on mitigating them, you're literally missing half the picture. So that's kind of part of the reason we've done the focus that we have and have some of the partnerships that we do to continue to focus on these issues of, local economy. Because again, if you're ignoring the impacts and the pain that is being inflicted from, again, the phrase that was used that you kind of agree with, that the cure cannot be worse than the disease that has come out for a bit, is absolutely important here. Or if you're, cutting off one arm to save the other, it better be a damn dire choice. And I don't think we were even there, even at the height of the pandemic. Even when we were seeing some of the worst situations in town, I still think it probably could have been handled a bit better. But hindsight 2020, I'm not in the decision maker seat, so it's find an armchair quarterback and say what you would have done when all of the situations were made apparent to you. But I mean, even statewide, I think that's why there, among other things, was some serious contention to Governor Greg Abbott trying to find that daylight between him and his base that ultimately did not work, him winning handily over any particular challenger and avoiding any runoff challenge. So, I mean, that makes a certain level of sense here. But speaking, of course, about governor's challenges, we do have had, just more than just a little bit of what is going on with those challenges. And, at the governor's level, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, as he is known by some statewide, just saying his name, guys, come on, you people know who we're talking about here, was, of course, in town holding his People of Texas campaign town hall in the Community Foundation room in downtown El Paso, and saying a few things, some interesting responses here, nothing really outside of expectation here. Specifically speaking, along with him were El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego and Jessica Garcia, survivor of the August 3rd shooting. John Brazelton, if I'm interpreting your use of the word hunk here, right, saying Beto is such a hunk, I can't wait to see how bad he loses his election for governor. I think you're, I'll just let that comment stand out there on its own. Actually, interpret it as you will here. But the county judge saying, we love him, we need to support him, in reference to O'Rourke, and more discussion going on to hear onto some of the prominent points that have come out, including, of course, the teacher shortage here in Texas. Know at least a couple of people who have done the training to become substitute teachers, and there's an expectation on the Texas side of things that there might be need for long-term substitutes. Like literally, someone I know that is going to be going through that training here is expected to probably need to be doing that every day as soon as they're done with training, and has been opened up a little bit even further than those who may not have strictly qualified previously, but there's just that desperate need, and that's that whole task force that the governor has announced into looking at it. But I think it's another situation where it comes down to the amount of pay, and particularly with, like New Mexico doing its own changes in relation to that, and looking at more revenue potentially coming in to further support it here from the whole expectation of revenue. We'll see how reality works out on the marijuana legalization, may be able to keep that going here, among other things. Also, the question, of course, coming to O'Rourke about legalization of marijuana, because that has been one of his more consistent campaign planks, I'm willing to say, throughout a number of these campaigns. And so according to our news partners over at KFOX 14, he said, and I quote, "I'm not advocating that anyone use marijuana. I'm especially not advocating that young people use marijuana. We know that when a young person uses marijuana, from the medical evidence we have, it's not good for the brain. Right now, marijuana is being sold on the black market. One of the fastest growing markets for marijuana is the middle playground, because drug dealers don't ID. They don't care about consequences or implications. When it's not regulated and controlled, we have no ability really to keep it out of the hands of our kids." End quote. The quote goes on a little bit further there, and more, of course, from O'Rourke's town hall here in town. If you want to go and see that again, from our news partners over at kfoxtv.com is their website. But we'll have to get a little bit further into that here with more of it. I mean, there's a whole lot of implications that come from all of this, and we're creeping ever closer to, of course, that start of the, we're already in the campaign season. I guess I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but really getting into the weeks and probably the couple of months outside of it, the debates. I hope there are going to be debates. I haven't seen anything concrete about it, but if there's any two that I would love to see a showdown, oratorially speaking, would be between Abbott and O'Rourke, because there are some interesting viewpoints that would be at play between those two, and how they even just reference and try to go out the points of each other. there are some out there that argue that debates are not the best way to gauge the actual impact of a campaign, and that certainly has a level of merit to it. Because if you're looking at, a very specific economic policy and the impacts it could have, just being able to do a stump speech on it doesn't necessarily mean it'll have the best impact. But if you're not able to confidently support your points when faced with any level of opposition to it, it does raise questions about your actual conviction and commitment to it. So not the only test that should probably be applied to any elected official, but still one that's, well, I love campaigns and elections. I know I'm weird that way, but I still like the idea of it as a way to, at the very least, inform the uninformed, because there's a whole lot of people out there. I mean, the amount of undecided, there's uncaring voters in our region. Take them if you got them, and pass the AR, vote for Beto. RJ saying there, I think, at least a little bit tongue-in-cheek is my expectation here. But tell you what, we'll have to get into more of that next hour, because there's a whole lot more to get to. I didn't even really touch on that home remorse thing that I promised to. So we'll get into that, more about the statewide politics, some of the discussions, and even some actions coming up from Abbott and his, well, everything can be interpreted through the campaign trail at this point. But we'll get into that more and a whole lot more about what affects us here in the borderland, here on Talk El Paso. Again, your host, Andrew J. Polk here. You're tuned in. We'll be back next hour with more talk about this. If you want to give us a call, the number to do so there and chime in on your own, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound heads up for an injury accident that is blocking ramp G. That's the left interchange ramp at I-10 eastbound, just past Copia. Stop and go traffic on the 10 eastbound between the Loop and East Lake with 5 to 10 minute delays. America's Avenue westbound at Pan American, police and medical crew there for an accident, and North Loop Drive southbound at Zaragoza, an injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home, and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Extreme mood swings, substance abuse, change in sleeping habits, avoiding friends, family, and the things you used to love, suicidal thoughts. These are just a few of the signs of mental illness, and if you or someone you know is experiencing them, research says that talking about mental health has the power to make a person suffering feel less isolated, and we all deserve that. Go to iHeartRadio.com/talk for tips on how to start the conversation. This has been brought to you by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and iHeartMedia.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio. 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Americans can expect increases in energy and food prices due to the Russian invasion on Ukraine.
That, in turn, could reinforce inflation, which was already an issue prior to the invasion due to the pandemic,
supply chain constraints, and a strong demand for goods.
At the White House, the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Cecilia Rouse, said U.S. sanctions will focus its impact on the Russian economy, but there will be some domestic impact as well. The Storm Prediction Center says more severe weather is headed for the south. The lower Mississippi River Valley is being issued a level 3 enhanced severe weather risk for Wednesday. Will Smith and his wife will reportedly break their silence and talk about Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. Radar says Smith and his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, will talk about it on Jada's Facebook watch show, Red Table Talk, later this week. Senator Dick Durbin says Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas should recuse himself from any case dealing with last year's Capitol riot. Virginia Thomas reportedly sent text to then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, urging him to continue efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee said it's the ultimate conflict of interest. Spotify is rolling out COVID disclaimers 2 months after a boycott caused by Joe Rogan's podcast.
The new feature includes a small blue tab that will direct users to its COVID-19 information hub. The streaming platform promised the addition almost 2 months ago after some musicians and creators boycotted the platform over the airing of the Joe Rogan Experience. They claimed it helped spread coronavirus vaccine misinformation. Rogan praised Spotify's choice to add the disclosures, but also defended his booking of the controversial guests. I'm Lisa Taylor.
At the closing bell, the Dow Jones gained 94 points to 34,955. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The controversy at last night's Oscars between Will Smith and Chris Rock is shining a light on alopecia. Lisa G. has more.
Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, has documented her struggles with the hair loss condition and shaved her head due to clumps of her hair falling out. Pinkett Smith has spoken publicly since 2018 about alopecia, which has no known cure. She said that when her hair first started falling out, she was shaking with fear, and that's why she continues to shave her head.
Walmart is planning to stop the sale of cigarettes at some of its stores. The locations include stores in California, Arkansas, Florida, and New Mexico. The chain is reportedly creating more self-checkout registers in areas where cigarettes would normally be kept. The decision was made before the COVID-19 pandemic, as Walmart CEO Doug McMillon has apparently urged fellow executives for years to search for ways to stop selling tobacco. A new Siena College poll reveals incumbent Kathy Hochul maintains a sizable lead in the upcoming Democratic primary race for New York governor, which is 3 months away. Liz Warner reports.
The poll indicates the current governor is 40 points ahead of her fellow Democratic rivals. New York City public advocate Jumaane Williams and Long Island Congressman Tom Suozzi trail Hochul with 12% and 11% of the vote, respectively. Around 24% of registered voters remain undecided, and when polled about a potential bid from former Governor Andrew Cuomo, 67% of voters hope he doesn't run at all. The winner of the Democratic primary would likely face off against Congressman Lee Zeldin.
A star-studded group of artists is coming together to raise funds for the people of Ukraine. The Concert for Ukraine takes place on Tuesday and will feature performances by the likes of Ed Sheeran, Camila Cabello, Snow Patrol, Nile Rodgers, and more. The 2-hour live benefit at the Resorts World Arena in Birmingham, England, will raise funds for humanitarian aid. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 5/28. Visit staples.com/signage for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples.
Hey, spring is here, and the warmer weather means you've got a lot more going on. Don't let COVID get in the way of any of it. COVID vaccines offer the strongest possible protection now and from long-term effects in the future. Protect yourself and your plans. We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. That's vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Calling all jokesters, April Fools, and all-around punny people. This week on the free iHeartRadio app, the joke's on you. No, literally, we're handing you the mic to tell us your favorite joke. Just open the free iHeart app and tap 24/7 Comedy Radio. When you're ready for Spotlight, tap the mic, record your joke, and send it. Then listen to Hear Yourself on 24/7 Comedy Radio all day Friday. Plus, we've got thousands of laugh-out-loud comedy podcasts for you to binge anytime, anywhere. Stop laughing. That was serious.
iHeartRadio.
Imagine
Imagine being denied an apartment because of housing discrimination.
It's so wrong.
But who has the power to stop this?
You do. The law is on your side. If you've been discriminated against because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status, file a complaint with HUD. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
Visit HUD.gov/fair housing. A public service message from HUD and the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. We do those because I think the interaction adds more than anything it takes away. Anyway, but you're also not required to do that by any means. That's one of the better ways to chime in throughout the program, as we have John Browselton, Ion Grimm, RJ, Steve Ivey, and more tuning in, chiming in that way. Some dropping the likes and reaction here, Calvin Williams and Dan Morales as well. So I appreciate, because it gets a little bit more conversational that way. But if you prefer to do it other ways, if you're just wanting to sit back and enjoy the ride, just strap yourself in, because that's how it goes. But if you want to call in, we also do have that phone line open right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Few of the things we're talking about here today just had to get some of those state level politics, because we do love them so dearly, particularly when we have O'Rourke campaigning in town over the weekend, as we have. Plus, more events coming up. I'm on most of the lists that I can find myself on, and I managed to maintain my sanity most of the time, arguably most of the time, I will admit that. So I know of a few things coming up and going on in and around town, some block walking, those kind of things. So again, we're fully in the campaign season. I mean, if it wasn't for the primary, that would be very evident. And I expect more will be coming up here, but some comments coming on here. I realized with RJ's comment from before the top of the hour here that I did a Freudian slip. I said, take them if you got them and pass the AR. What he actually wrote was, toke them if you got them and pass the AR, vote for Beto. But I feel like mine was a justifiable slip in this case here. Ion Grimm saying that the judge kept pleading for people to vote for Beto because he, the judge, needed another governor. He made it clear that his fake authority that he displayed in El Paso was in jeopardy. Ion phrasing it there. And John Browsland saying the county judge is the black sheep of the elected officials or just his family in the county here. So, I mean, there's a lot of conversation happening about it. Again, it still baffles me that given the amount of contention there was over some of these decisions, and there was more than a little bit, I mean, the legal cases that I got to believe are settled by now, because if they're still out there waiting in the ether, like, what's the point? Like, at a certain point, utility has to be considered when going through court cases. I mean, moot points exist, legally speaking, but they'll probably be out there for perpetuity, and who knows, maybe one will show up in some weird precedents after a while, some obscure way here. But, I mean, the county judge, the fact that no one actually formally ballot-wise, that he didn't even have his own party challenger, someone saying, you know what, I didn't like the way you went about it. I kind of think up a la Governor Abbott, how he had people of his own party saying, I don't like the way you went about this, or a other party challenger. But of course, we have had guests on the show talking about that and, hoping to mount their own challenges against them. The independent, Guadalupe Giner, RJ saying I gotta start showing up for rehearsal. Listen, I'm a little rusty on my pot puns, so forgive me there. But yeah, we have had, of course, Guadalupe Giner talking about her independent run here. So there is a level of opposition, or burgeoning opposition, I guess might be the technically right way to put it, because they've got some work to do to fully get on the ballot that way. But it just surprises me. And also when it comes to our state legislators, that there wasn't that. I mean, the biggest challenge that happened there was with the two districts that collided with the representatives having to go head to head against each other. So that's just the part that baffles me. But I said it. Let's get to those phone lines here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Tony on the west side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. This comment is for stupid Beto O'Rourke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We don't need Beto O'Rourke to be a governor. He does not qualify to be a governor. That's like having another Biden here in El Paso. We don't need another Biden. Him and Escobar, they ought to go to Mexico and run for office over there. They would love them because these people, they love to fool people. And all they've done in the past 4 years is fight against our Republicans and haven't done nothing for the people of the United States. So the hell with Beto O'Rourke. Don't believe him.
Okay.
That's my comment.
Oh, no, I appreciate the thought in the call there. So safe to say you won't be going out for the polls for him. But I guess just to get your opinion here real quick on how you felt that the Republican governor's nomination race came down. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to be voting for Abbott here in the balance here, but were you happy with the way that resulted in with all of his challengers?
Maybe not, but we don't need somebody that thinks radically like this idiot Beto O'Rourke.
I mean, fair enough. I certainly get your opinion there, and I'm not questioning it. I'm just curious because oftentimes previous candidates, as well, kind of exemplified by O'Rourke, honestly, end up coming back here. So I don't think this will be the last time that we hear from the likes of Huffines, West, or even Prather possibly here. So just curious, but thank you for the point in the call. I do appreciate it. All right, you have a good one there. Oop, I think you disconnected there. Anyway, again, if you want to call in during the show, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I know I'm talking about way stuff outside of the current race here, but, I mean, there was a decent amount of overall support that was seen. I mean, maybe if all of the candidates had coalesced that were against Abbott, they could have had somewhat of a shot. I think you split the vote that many ways. I mean, KDK Horn, who had the billboards in town saying a different kind of Republican, you may have seen that one around, but didn't get a response from her campaign and also didn't file any campaign finance reports, or at least missed a couple, if I'm recalling correctly. I mean, it just dilutes the other message that comes along with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of those campaigns come back up into the future here, but we will see. I think we got time to squeeze one more in here real quick. I do want to get to Ion Grimm. I think it sounds like you were at the rally here, not a rally. It was a town hall, which even that they're significantly different, but a little bit more back and forth. And again, I'll give you benefit of the doubt there, saying that O'Rourke talked about three major focuses: better jobs to include more labor unions, increase Medicare for everyone, and better pay for teachers. My question is, why don't they get any of these things done when he represented El Paso in his past demo positions? In other elite families that run El Paso have kept it from growing and attracting better paying jobs, and they contributed to raise property taxes and line their pockets. He did talk a little bit as well, according to our news partners over at KFOX 14. I was not there myself, but their coverage there and listening to what was put out from that, they talked a little bit about taxes and that corporations needed to be doing more, and that there's too much, particularly in a local area, on just the homeowners. But, well, it's not a huge plank part of it. Again, there's more on his website than there was at the start of it, but I'd still like to see maybe a bit more detail than just Abbott got it wrong. Here's vaguely what we do more of. Let's squeeze in one more call before we hit that next break. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, Harry the Horse here. Good afternoon, El Paso.
Afternoon, Harry. What's on your mind?
I want to state some facts here, if I might, Andrew.
Sure.
First of all, cannabis is here to stay, okay? Beto's on the correct path of cannabis as far as getting votes, okay? He has admitted, though, that there is no idea of the complications of law that are going to eventually apply. That is going to become very ambiguous, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get hung up in legal activities like you can't believe. Now, in support of that, we are a drug society overall. How about Prozac, lithium, alcohol? We got Ritalin for the kids. It doesn't stop. 52 years ago, I couldn't get my troops in Vietnam off of marijuana. So, you know, this thing has been around for a long time. And It started out as medical marijuana, which was probably a good thing. But let me tell you what else you're going to have to be cognizant of.
Mm-hmm.
In Colorado, when they approved this, you had to be careful about going into a store, a flower store, a candy store, anywhere, and not buying something that was laced with marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And that would scare me to death.
I mean, yeah, the second order effects, I think, is the best way to put it here. I use the word implications a lot, but the second and third order effects that come along with it. I mean, there have been some of the stories about, oh, look out for, the edibles in your kids' candy at Halloween. I don't know anyone that would be, or even can imagine someone who'd be willing to pay good money, because those things are not cheap, to my understanding, and then just drop it into kid stuff just for S's and giggles. But I mean, outliers may exist, or just really stupid people, but I mean, there's still the overflow that's probably going to happen. The increased accessibility probably means increased unlawful accessibility, and just you got to account for these things in doing it. It's one thing to be like, yeah, let's do it, it'll be so great, another thing to say, and there will be no problems, because that's when I stop believing the person speaking about it, because there are absolutely going to be problems. That's not even and therefore we shouldn't do it kind of stance. But if you're not recognizing it, then you're not living in reality.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to get off the subject here for a minute.
Sure.
Hey, this Cobb fellow that we talked about Saturday on the History Show, that guy would have been a good CIA agent today with the activities that was going on between the U.S. and Mexico in 1911, 1912 were the busy years. Mm-hmm. But you brought up a couple of points to your guest, and he was good. Pancho Villa as a cattle rustler, please. Pancho Villa was moving cattle from the Mexican side across to the U.S. side. That was one I never heard of. And the other interesting point is I bring up occasionally Pancho Villa's stash house, which I'll probably end up in there someday. Did they ever discovered all the bounty, all the gold, silver, and money that was supposedly stashed in there?
Well, okay, so there was the recent program. We're mixing our P's and Q's here a little bit, but just for the moment here, there was the recent program on the History Channel, the Beyond Oak Island, which it featured some familiar names and faces you may recall here, and they did a bit of an excavation here, but the owner down there, Enrique Guajardo, I mean, he's still going to be revamping, refitting the area. I think they filled in most of the holes that were made to allow him to do that, or at least put like plexiglass and maybe making them their own feature, but I don't think that like the whole grounds of that site have ever been like fully excavated. They did a little bit that you may have seen there, but probably more to do, but I think it'll make a good attraction going forward as soon as he can get his arms around getting it up and running as its own venue.
Well, I'd just like to say I hope me and Raul can go through there and check it out. That's my comments for today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, that's going to take us through our next break here. Overdue for that next one. So we will take more comments and calls. Some comments coming up here we'll get to, but also calls on the line if you're wanting to call in and comment that way. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Piedras got a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder. Stay left. I-10 eastbound after Copia Street on Ramp G, there is a crash that's blocking the left interchange ramp. It's slow with 5 to 10 minute delays on the 10 eastbound between the Loop and East Lake Drive. In El Paso, fires on the scene of a medical emergency, Copia Street north of Pershing. Take Piedras or Montana Avenue as alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. And right now, save 45% off any order. Just use code RADIO at checkout. Blindster.com.
The True Crime Podcast, What Happened to Sandy Beale, investigates the alarming death of a young woman who dreamed of a career in law enforcement. Journalist Melissa Jeltsin untangles the mystery at the heart of the investigation, revealing a troubling pattern by officials close to the case.
I didn't take any of their crap because I could tell that they were hiding something.
Listen to What Happened to Sandy Beale, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk, and I love supporting local and experiencing all the world has to offer, which is why I love Enhanced Flavors, your local source of over 40 quality flavored olive oils and balsamic vinegars. You don't have to scour the globe or even leave home to taste all that's offered in extra virgin olive oil and great flavored varieties from Italy, Greece, Spain, and Tunisia, and certified balsamic vinegar straight from the Modena province of Italy. Look for Enhanced Flavors at your favorite farmers markets to spice up your life, or find them online at enhancedflavors.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents.
And Doug.
Don't you just love the smell of old books?
Shh, this is a library.
Sorry, ma'am. We're looking for a book titled Liberty Mutual Customizes Your Car Insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I don't think we carry that, but check nonfiction.
He really does devour literature.
Please leave.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Bunch of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we have those phone lines open right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in over on the social media channels as well. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Find us either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Equal measure, you can comment into most of those here. The Twitter doesn't work as well, but all the rest of them, leave your comments here or just be along for the ride here. But taking a little bit more active stance here, RJ, John Brazelton, Maria Coleman, Ion Grimm, Steve Ivey, Calvin Williams a little bit earlier. Interesting comments throughout here. Few of them that we've been missing here. Maria Coleman saying that I agree marijuana should be decriminalized, but Beto appears to be attempting to obtain the young vote. Candidates can have a platform, but they need to have the backing and capability to pass their agenda. I guess particularly on marijuana, I fully expect Texas to be like the last place to have not legalized. Like even if it goes national, I feel like Texas will be like, no, it's not the state level yet, go away. Maybe I'm wrong, but it wouldn't be surprised if that is the case here. But RJ going on further on the governor's race here, and particularly the challengers or erstwhile challengers to Governor Greg Abbott from his own party. We need a DeSantis kind of Republican. Not that he's perfect, but Abbott followed his lead whenever he seemed to gain good political advantage from it. Abbott doesn't lead from the front here. It was interesting to see the kind of shift of fortunes, shift of public opinions, because I seem to recall, at least somewhere in the midst of the pandemic, it's hard to pin down when exactly because time ceased to have meaning back then. Overall, we still did our daily show, of course, but I mean, there was the whole, if, the former president doesn't run, would, Abbott end up running against that? And then the tide pretty quickly turned. I want to say around the time CPAC was going on that we did that visit to and brought you some coverage from. That was about the time it seemed like opinion was changing because, among other things, Abbott wasn't there, notably. Neither was actually Ted Cruz, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, which was odd for me here, but I mean, it does seem that DeSantis has more captured that idea at the national level, even if Walsh will still run regardless. Would be interesting to see if in a potential scrap up, if, Donald Trump does not run again in 2024. Again, I'd be pretty surprised if that doesn't happen, but he hasn't technically made an announcement yet, and I doubt he would until practically on the doorstep of the election. The fundraising will continue apace is what I'm really saying here. But, I mean, I think that will be just even wargaming that, the idea of who would run and what their chances are. I think DeSantis is pretty well in front, at least at this point here. But even though we try to keep our subjects separate on the shows that we talk about between this and the El Paso History Radio Show, I do appreciate a good bit of historical perspective sometime. And John Brazelton pointing out from his Vietnam experience that when he went to Vietnam and came back and went to college, the college kid went out and stripped the leaves off the wild hemp plants that grew along the county roads. They didn't realize that all the good drugs were in Vietnam. The local hemp leaves had almost no THC, but they thought they were living the wild life here. I mean, that is my understanding about the changes over the decades of the availability and quality, quote unquote, of the marijuana in the U.S. But I mean, you want to go back historically. I mean, there was a reason that hemp was noted in naval circles because it made some of the best rope here. And yes, I've heard the stories about, George Washington cultivating it, but I'm pretty sure it was for that more industrial use. But RJ also saying Beto will take the Department of Correction vote, illegal immigrant vote, or the recently resurrected and once dead vote. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we need to make sure doesn't happen when it comes to voting here. Will fully agree here. More conversation on that, but let's get to those phone lines. Again, I've threatened to use them, and I should follow through. The number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, I was hearing you talk about entrepreneurship earlier and the different options that Americans have for securing an income. Life in the United States, in my opinion, can be a bitch. And is a bitch for way too many Americans. The Fed came out with a study when they had the first shutdown here, Trump's first shutdown, showing that most people are not living the American dream. When 60% of Americans cannot come up with $1,000 in case of an emergency without having to borrow money or sell something, that is an American nightmare. In fact, George Carlin called it the American dream because you got to be asleep to believe it, he said. There's also very little job security for many Americans. And all this is due, in my opinion, because we live in a plutocracy. We have the best politicians money can buy, and half of our congressmen are millionaires, while only 6% of Americans are millionaires. So in a capitalist system, the only really free Americans are those born into families who have enough capital so that they don't have to work, or those who through their own efforts accumulate enough capital so that their income eventually supports their lifestyles. But that's very few Americans. Everyone else has to work if you want to survive and have a shot at thriving. And you can choose among three alternatives. You can work in the private sector, and as you mentioned earlier in the show, half of the people work for small businesses, or you can work in the public sector for local, state, or the federal government, or you can work for school districts. And again, people who opt for the government type jobs are going for a higher level of security, and of course they get health insurance, and they also get retirement programs, which in the public sector you only get if you work for the larger companies. The small companies, very few of them provide health insurance and retirement benefits. The small entrepreneur just can't afford it. And if you choose to be an entrepreneur, which is your other choice, well, then you got to fund your own retirement, and you have to pay for your own health insurance. So it's a tough thing. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that, and going into business for yourself is a very risky thing.
Oh, yeah.
Approximately 20% of the new businesses failed during the first 2 years. 45% have failed within the first 5 years, and only 65% last 10 years. In other words, only 25% of new businesses make it to 15 years. And a lot of those new businesses are restaurants and bars, those kinds of smaller businesses. Sure. I just had to hire some plumbers. I heard the CEO of Starbucks say that he thinks it'd be better for some of these young people to become plumbers than they become mechanical engineers. I was told, because I had a leak in my house this weekend, that if I wanted to come over here, it's going to cost me $180 an hour, for them to show up. So that's what I had to say on that. Now on to Putin's murderous invasion and destruction of Ukraine. I have yet to hear Trump vociferously denounce and condemn Putin over this, and it's because Putin penetrated, compromised, and played Trump a long time ago. So those are my thoughts on those things. Why do you think Trump hasn't vociferously condemned and denounced Putin?
I mean, again, I think we're debating over definitions here, because he has absolutely come out against this invasion and talking that there needs to be a hell of a lot more support for the Ukraine here. So I guess if we're not needing the level that you're wanting here of vociferously, I mean, that's a debatable point here. But I mean, to say that is at all in favor of this that's just ludicrous at this point. I have to say that.
A newspaper reporter asked Trump what should be done about Ukraine, and this is what he says. Well, what would I do is we have tremendous military capability, and we can do without planes. To be honest with you, without 44-year-old jets. What we can do is enormous, and we should be doing it, and we should be helping them to survive, and they're doing an amazing job. Sounds like word salad of a moron.
I mean, I don't think your opinions on that, gentlemen, are at all in question at this point here. But again, just the core tenet of what you're asserting there, that he's in favor of this by not denouncing it here, that just doesn't bear out in reality here. But to your further point about small business entrepreneurial spirit, yeah, being in business is tough here, but you kind of hit on it right at the end, believe it or not, with the whole idea about the trades. I think that is more than a little bit of the core issue we're looking at with some of this economic imbalance we've got here, because there is, I mean, even before the pandemic, literally millions of jobs in demand for the trades. But unfortunately, I mean, my generation and on down, it does feel like it's been if you don't go to college, you're not worth anything, you're an idiot, and you can't handle it, and you're going to reap what you sow. Meanwhile, we've got people highly educated that are, since we're talking about Starbucks, baristas, and their accounts online, take them with a grain of salt, saying that, and I feel like I've ruined my life in doing it. But if they've gone with a trade, sure, it's physical labor, and therefore, for whatever reason, kind of looked down upon in this country. Meanwhile, everyone loves the flushing toilet and will scream bloody murder if they don't have it. There's still this weird respect for the kind of person who will then do that kind of work, but they're charging commensurate with their skills, and it costs a lot here. So tell you what, we appreciate the point of the call. We got to take that next break. Coming out of the break, we are going to get more into these subjects here, but if you want to call in during the show, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 45-year-old El Paso man is accused of killing a pedestrian in the Lower Valley. Bobby Gabaldon was driving a motorcycle at the time of the crash, which happened on March 21st. The victim has been identified as 50-year-old Hector Mario Chavez. After the crash, police say that Gabaldon fled on foot. He was found about a quarter of a mile from the scene, covered in blood and tattered clothing. He was taken to a hospital and treated for injuries he sustained in the crash. He is being held on a $75,000 bond. A Las Cruces psychiatrist has pleaded guilty to unlawfully prescribing opioids. 75-year-old Mark Beal pleaded guilty Friday in federal court to unlawfully dispensing and distributing a Schedule II controlled substance. By the terms of his plea agreement, Beal faces 5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the 54 Patriot northbound at the Trans Mountain, watch for an injury accident and expect slowing and delays there. I-10 eastbound at Padreas, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound is slow with about 5-minute delays between Cotton and Copia Street. Police and medical crew both responding to an injury accident right now. Hondo Pass Drive at Mount Delano. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Teen Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. So we start off a new work week looking very much like the weekend with temperatures running almost 10 degrees above average. But that changes on Tuesday as our next wind maker arrives. It arrives with moisture to bring back a chance for some rain and also arrives with a cool front. So cooler temperatures will change this very warm weather pattern we've been under.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. And right now, save 45% off any order. Just use code RADIO at checkout. Blindster.com.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish
is pretty bad. So we're using Babbel.
Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Did you realize your home's HVAC system operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? At Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, we're conveniently open 7 days a week at the same hourly rate. So for professional quality service, call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing day or night for a job done right at 595-4529. 595-4529.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
Staples offers tech solutions and accessories for learners, small business, and remote workers too. Right now, Apple AirPods Pro are only $199, a $50 savings. In-store only. Offer ends 4/2 while supplies last. Limit 2. Explore what's new at Staples, the working and learning store. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso. We're live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today. A lot of ways to chime in on the show as well. Of course, we got that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. The number to call there. You can squeeze in there if you want to. A couple calls on the line here already. A lot of comments coming in as well. James Ratcliffe saying that the restaurant business is very hard to withstand the market, and virtually 5% really make it well, not 25%. Yeah, that bears out. The amount of places that come, go, and okay, I might be a little bit biased, but advertising does seem to make a difference. But I mean, I'm in the business I am, so take it with a grain of salt you might hear. And some comments about Radcliffe also going on previously saying, hoping for reasonable statements from Raul, but then he goes off on Trump again. Yeah, again, I hope against hope that all of our callers will make an interesting, informed, and debatable point here. But, well, I hope against hope, as I say here. RJ kind of trying to go the other way, saying when will Biden denounce Ukrainian troops shooting and torturing Russian troops here? All right, I am never going to be totally in favor of the actions in any war here, and there are plenty of factors and factions even within, you mean the whole Ukrainian conflict, even on the Ukrainian side. I mean, the Azov battalion that has had a lot of focus on it. Yeah, probably shouldn't exist here, but, conflict and overwhelming conflict can make strange bedfellows here. So, I mean, I'm not happy about them. And if I had my druthers, well, I'd stop a lot of things that conflict, including the existence of that unit here. But again, I mean, there are war crimes being committed. That is much as undeniable, I do believe. And this is not a whole both sides kind of things here, but I guess I'm more than a little bit concerned about Russia and getting them dealt with. And then we can deal with the stuff down the line, I guess, is the way I personally feel about it, though I'm sure opinions differ here, but that's more of a Friday conversation. Let's talk more about what affects us here in the borderland. Again, more calls, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Reference what Beto O'Rourke said, and I got a few clips on the news last night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, one of them, he talked about creating more union jobs.
Mm-hmm. Which is an interesting proposition for a state like this, where it's a right-to-work state, is the way it's put.
Yes, and being a right-to-work state, under the current labor laws, you cannot deny somebody employment or because they are a member of a union or not a member of a union. So that kind of, to me, falls flat on its face.
I mean, at the very least, if you're really wanting to accomplish that, you're talking about a serious overhaul of state laws that, even if there was total willingness and, the amount of support and backing you need on it, I would be surprised if that could even be changed within any single term of office.
Well, wouldn't surprise me what Democrats would try to do with the stroke of a pen and executive powers.
I mean, sure, there's plenty you can do within a term of office. Don't get me wrong there, but I mean, it's so ingrained. I mean, it has been reinforced for decades here, generations practically here in Texas, that I think you'd be hard pressed.
Yes, I agree. And concerning marijuana, I believe he said it's not regulated or controlled.
Essentially something. Let me see if I can actually find that part of it here. Okay, right now with marijuana being sold in the black market, when it's not regulated and controlled, we have no ability really to keep it out of the hands of our kids. Kind of combining two parts of the quote there, but that second one being the direct quote. Yeah.
Well, actually, kind of a contradiction in terms on his part. It is regulated. It is controlled. It's plain illegal. Makes no sense. It makes no sense. It is illogical to want to, for anybody to want to legalize marijuana at the state level when it's illegal at the federal level. And just to let people know, there's a mandatory 1 year jail sentence at the federal level for possession of marijuana, anything 2 ounces or under.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's kind of where the whole, decriminalization or citation level that we've seen locally happen that exists in that realm. But I mean, yeah, the whole wave we've seen across the country of marijuana legalization, with an asterisk by it, has basically been upon the permissiveness of enforcement at the federal level that could literally, without even the stroke of a pen, be changed overnight and completely upend that.
Yes, it would have to go through Congress, yes. Anyway, reference to that Raul character, you're not going to hear anything positive about Donald Trump, even if he condemns Putin, because the plutocrats that own social media and the news agencies, they're not going to show anything positive concerning Donald Trump. And number two, in that aspect, or concerning jobs and other employment possibilities, my advice to people: stay in school and stay off drugs and alcohol, especially the marijuana.
Oh, absolutely here, but I think we need to expand that idea of school. I mean, high school diplomas, not even no longer a baseline. It's a minimum requirement. And really, if you want to do it, stay in school, sure, but again, expand that definition of school to include trade school, to include technical education, because frankly, I mean, given the way the market is continuing on, those jobs are the most in demand, and you can pretty well make some bank on that.
Yes, not only trade school and technical schools. I mean, get a career in criminal justice. I mean, there's social workers that criminal justice needs social workers. They need police officers. They need corrections officers, probation officers, parole officers. Who says crime doesn't pay? In a sense.
Hopefully, only from the one side of the enforcement kind of thing here. But I mean, yeah, that's a fair point to make.
Yes, that's the point I was trying to make.
Yes, absolutely. Here, I mean, that was a good point to make, and I just hope people consider that as they're considering their own lives or how they're advising, the young people in their lives. Anyway, I always recommended at least have somewhat of a business focus, even to my most liberal of liberal arts friends, because sure, if you want to be a true wandering troubadour, you still might want to know how you're actually going to, pay bills doing that.
Well, yeah, it's like I told people. They used to ask me, don't you ever get tired of dealing with these criminals or offenders? I said, no, that's job security for me.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully we'll see some problem ends before too long, but I doubt that will be one of it. So yeah, probably some pretty good job security for the foreseeable future there. Well, I do appreciate the points and the calls. You have a good one.
Take care.
All right, we got time for another one here before we hit that next break. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Golly, this morning I felt a little under the weather and everything. So I called Dr. Biden, and I called Dr. Escobar, and I called Dr. Cruz, and I called Dr. Abbott for advice on how to treat this feeling I had and everything. And what I'm getting at is that Dr. Abbott and Dr. Cruz and Dr. Escobar, they were telling me how to treat COVID whenever, if I got sick. I don't remember ever calling any politician when I got sick before COVID for any advice whatsoever on how to take care of my condition.
Yeah.
It really upsets the hell out of me That's the reason why I went ahead. I voted for Chad Prather because he was going to allow doctors to be doctors, and that is one of the big issues of our time, because we're going to have more other variants and other things, and they're going to lock us down again. And unless we have a government that allows doctors to be doctors, we're going to go through this whole thing over again.
I unfortunately think you got a point there, because I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of how things should work that came out of the state, federal, and even the local level, which we focused on a little bit here. And yeah, just looking at, the weather forecast, so to speak, when it looks at that, I mean, we see situations evolving in Europe and Asia with China. I mean, as much as they don't publicly report things, when they do say that, yeah, stuff is really being locked down in their own location right now, I tend to take notice, because sure, I don't trust anything coming out of the Chinese Communist Party as far as I could throw that, and I do mean the entire assemblage, so let's say not very far at all. If anything does publicly come out, I tend to take note that seems unfavorable to them, by which I mean I tend to take a bit of notice. So, I mean, you can see the storm brewing on the horizon here. And yeah, the question, and one we will definitely be freely discussing here, is at the local level, what is happening, what is needed to be done, and what is the impact it's having? Because if you're not analyzing it, we are literally missing half the problem. And this great situation we're in, I mean, I feel like we're booming pretty well right now, but it does have that kind of tenuous underpinning to it, that feeling to it, and it could stop here, at least with the public stuff. I still am somewhat, thinking that the larger business, the movement of business, things that we've been talking about will continue. But even then, I mean, it feels more tenuous than it has in previous, decades, I'll say.
Yeah, and it is a matter that if I hear one more person say this country is the richest country in the world, and that we have money to spend on everybody that comes across the border, I'm going to throw up into my mouth, okay? Because we are deep in debt. The dollar is teetering on falling to a programmable digital dollar, and if this keeps on going, but every time I hear it on constantly on mainstream media, talk shows, everything saying we're the richest country in the world. I don't know where they get that idea, and anybody who believes that, I feel sorry for this country for the number of people that do believe it.
I mean, yeah, it's fascinating to me the way that some people who will lambast largesse in one area will then say that, there's no limit to it in the other ways. Case in point with yours, I'm sure that more than a couple of those kind of standpoints or articles being written will then also lambast the military spending, but they just go both ways, saying that, there is no pocket too deep to go for when it comes to defense spending, versus then, for any other programs, we just cannot bear the expense here. I find the analysis most persuasive for me anyway when it's like maybe we should look at both of these, because anytime we're reaching the trillions, I mean, sure, a billion here and a billion there, you start talking real money, is the phrase we live in these days when it comes to government spending. Anything that doesn't look at it all together as saying that, if it's fine that way, but it's not fine that way. No, I don't buy that for a second, because we do have to look at the pragmatic nature of how we should address the budget. Because I mean, as much as we talk about, cryptocurrency and the possibility of that and the implications that come with that are disturbing to say the least, it does kind of lay bare a core tenet of our economy, and that it is solely based on the faith that we have in it and our currency to come along with it. Because even right now, we have a fiat currency that is based on the full faith and confidence of the U.S. government and ergo the U.S. economy. So it's really, if we believe in it, it'll keep going. And I've had reason to be looking at the stock crash of the 20s here, and all that happened coming into then the Great Depression. And yeah, in that standpoint, all of the resources were still there. All of the physical, the coal mining, even the people who were previously employed, they were all still there. Just the way it was organized suddenly got upended. And so it very much matters how we even consider things and how the confidence goes into them.
And we're destroying the dollar by not getting us off the oil, the petrodollar, the investments in oil, which, America only pollutes to 1/6 of the emissions throughout the world. And if we destroy our economy by getting off the petrodollar off the oil and not invest in oil, the rest of the countries are going to have oil, and they're going to be polluting worse than we are. And it just makes no sense at all.
I mean, it's a very serious point here, because literally, it's a bad version of the plot of the movie Spaceballs, the idea of selling air in a can, and yet that's literally happened in places like China, who, some of the smog problems in some of the major cities, Beijing, Shanghai, some of the stories that came out of the Olympics about them trying to use the waterways to swim in and them just being choked with waste and diffuse items. It was a serious problem here, and we to strangle ourselves to do it. If no one else is doing that, they'll just, Russia, China, and any other upstarts will be more than happy to see us just do away with ourselves. I believe that there could be a future in which we are off of it. But if you think that can happen with a snap of the fingers and it just be done just by declaring it over, well, that's not reality either. I thank you for the point in the call. We got to take that next break right now. We're going to come back, close out the show, and get to more of this here. So you are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso. Coming back, get to those pound 250 calls. And for the person calling in as Yoda, I don't have anything against you, but just call in as yourself next time. That's all I have to say here. But back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 Patriot northbound just before Trans Mountain, an earlier injury accident with medical crew on the scene has been slowing traffic on the Patriot, but it's getting better over the last 10 minutes. It's still slow on the 10 eastbound between Cotton and Copia Street due to an earlier crash, I-10 eastbound right after Copia. That crash is blocking Ramp G, the left interchange ramp. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. And right now, save 45% off any order. Just use code RADIO at checkout. Blindster.com.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur with words from another happy payroll customer.
What do I love about Patriot Payroll Services? What don't I love about Patriot Payroll Services? It's easy to learn. It's very user-friendly. It's fast, even for a first-time user. It's perfect for our business. It's affordable, and it's been a great experience so far. We have no plans of changing.
Easy to learn, easy to use. Small business software tailored just for you.
Visit us at patriotsoftware.com. Use promo code RADIO and get 2 months of payroll free. That's patriotsoftware.com.
With patriotsoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents.
And Doug.
Don't you just love the smell of old books?
Shh, this is a library.
Sorry, ma'am. We're looking for a book titled Liberty Mutual Customizes Your Car Insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I don't think we carry that, but check nonfiction.
It really does devour literature.
Please leave.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for tuning in here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Coming around the bend on the end of this program here. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Some of the topics we're working on for you, more discussion about some of these real estate issues, some more talk about these business issues, these hiring burnout, among other things. So, because we've talked a lot about the shortages, but even those still on the job, and something that I may or may not have felt myself, how to deal with the burnout of those who are still on the job in those high demand industries. So we'll get into all that and more here, but we're going to close out here with a couple more things. Of course, we got that pound 250 system, pound 250 keyword Talk El Paso is the way you can leave us a message a day or a night here. Even gets a little bit off topic sometimes, but again, pound 250, say Talk El Paso when asked, leave your own message like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. Today is Sunday, and I want to chime in. I'm back from having great fun in downtown Messiah. But I want to talk about this horrible individual by the name of Virginia, a.k.a. Jeannie Thomas, that wife of that other nut job on the Supreme Court. I'm telling you what, not only does she look like Quasimodo's sister, well, what kind of an American is this that wants to upturn the United States democracy? We had a fair, free election by anybody's stretch of the imagination, and she's going out there trying to undo. She's nothing but an insurrectionist, a seditionist, the worst kind of an American. Oh my God, what is the matter with you conservatives out there? And you support this nut job? What's the matter with you?
Again, if you want to leave your own message, pound 250 keyword Talk El Paso. All I'm going to say on this is that anyone can bring up their own objections, and in particularly light of government here, and I just don't get the purpose of calling someone Quasimodo. In fact, looking at the pictures, I believe that Jenny Thomas is taller than Clarence Thomas, if I'm not mistaken here. So whatever, it dilutes your point that you're trying to make there. But to the actual point then, the idea of someone bringing up objections or having questions about the way election was actually performed, there are reasonable ones out there. Don't necessarily agree with her points. What I will say, though, as someone immediately adjacent to such a position of unelected power, that's definitely suspect. And well, people have been impeached for less. I will say that here. I think we got time for one more quick call. We do have Nate on the east side here with us. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. I just chimed in, so I did get to hear the whole conversation. But I think someone mentioned about the canned air for sale.
Yep, I mentioned that.
China. Well, we already have it right here in El Paso, Texas. If you walk into a Walgreens,
that's true.
I'm assuming y'all have it right by the pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
There, they got it for about the can, about the size of a Lysol spray can, $16.99 a can, and you got 4 different flavors.
Supposed to fit over like the nose and mouth. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. And thank you, Andrew. God bless you.
Sure thing. Appreciate the point there. I mean, I think that's more for like medical use here, as opposed to I don't like my air around me, I'm going to buy some others. But I mean, fair point. I will take the lumps when due here. All right, we got to leave the show there for today. So I do want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. In the meantime, I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 Patriot northbound, just before Trans Mountain, an earlier injury accident with medical crew on the scene has been slowing traffic on the Patriot, but it's getting better over the last 10 minutes. It's still slow on the 10 eastbound between Cotton and Copia Street due to an earlier crash, I-10 eastbound right after Copia. That crash is blocking Ramp G, the left interchange ramp. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price